This is the 2020 Giant Yukon 2. So in the Yukon lineup, Giant's fat bike model, there's a Yukon 2, a Yukon 1. Yukon 2 is $16.99, Yukon 1 I believe is $21.99. Those are Canadian prices. So this is the entry-level version and still stretches your dollar really, really well. So I'll just show you some of the highlights of this bike. We have Maxxis 27.5 by 4.5 tires. They're a Maxxis Colossus tire. They are a tubeless ready tire on a tubeless ready rim, with exo casing even on them. The rims, you'll see they are quite hollowed out, so that's helping to reduce the weight on wheels, which helps us to be one of the lightest, if not the lightest bike that I think I've seen under the $2,000 price point. These are about 32 pounds. The Yukon 2 has a Shimano Dior 1x12 drivetrain. It's a clutch drivetrain, so that little lever there means when your clutch is off, that spring is reduced, making it easier to remove a wheel if you got a flat. When it's on, that spring is much stronger. That will help to hold your chain from falling off. A Shimano Dior 12-speed cassette goes from 10 to 51 teeth. So combined with quite a small front chain ring, in this case a 28 tooth I believe that is. You have a super low climbing gear, which is a pretty critical thing on fat bikes. You end up spending a fair amount of time really creeping up hills and working on pedaling super smoothly. That is a narrow wide chainring. One thing to also note here is your rear axle is on a slider, so you do get a little bit of ability to change the rear center or chainstay length on the bike by adjusting that. That could be done if you were, say, running different tires, because you can get 27.5 by down to 3.8 width tires. So a nice little bit of adjustability. That was a through axle on the rear there too. On the fork, we have a really nice carbon fork with our sort of three mounting positions on the fork. It is a through axle fork. That same rim that we looked at before, that's heavily drilled out. Once again, making this a really light bike. This is the Desert Sage color. This bike also comes in a black color. This is a regular seat post on here, but this bike is set up for internally routed dropper post, which I think is a really good upgrade. So speaking of these Maxxis Colossus tires, the only criticism I could have for this bike is the fact that these tires don't have big enough treads on them that you can put in an aftermarket stud. So people are having to upgrade tires for our kind of conditions, where it's very, very common to put studded tires on in the Alberta area here. We've got a standard Giant cockpit on here. They're 780 millimeter wide handlebar, 60 millimeter long stem. This is the size medium we're looking at. Giant's lock-on grips, SRAM level T brakes. These actually work just fine on a fat bike. I used these on my Yukon 1 that I rode last winter, and no complaints at all. They were actually quite effective, and even a little bit less weird stuff happening with them in super cold conditions as compared to previous Shimanos that I had used. They are a 2-piston brake. We're on 160 rotors here. Huge braking power isn't a necessity. The nice feel and the fact that you don't have brake cables to get water into is a good thing. So an entry level hydraulic is a pretty practical choice. This is just showing the detail on that slider on the back there. So a couple of bolts that hold sort of a movable, hidden behind there dropout that holds the brake mount. And there's your crank. It's a 2-piece crank. So for sizing on these guys, we find that the Yukons fit pretty large. So I'm 6'1", and I rode a size large and wouldn't have even been tempted by an extra large. It felt so big, where in a lot of other bikes I'm kind of on the cusp. So our suggestion for these things is typically size small up to 5'7", maybe even 5'8", medium up to 5'10" or 5'11", large up to 6'1", maybe 6'2", and then extra large, you could be going all the way up to about 6'5", even 6'6", which we do have a customer on one of these in extra large, and he's in that 6'5", 6'6" range, and he's quite happy with it. So this is the 2020 Giant Yukon 2 fat bike. Thank you